Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on what part of the world you're coming from. This is the Chicken Box. That's right, you tuned into the right place. If you're from the Baltimore area, you absolutely are getting hungry because you know it's four wings and fries. If you are tuning in from any other part of the world, you are like, what kind of name is Chicken Box? If you're one of our fans and our guests, you already know. But this is where you come and speak the truth. This is where we debunk stereotypes and myths, and we bring truth to the African American community, and we always have a guest that delivers. So I am Kevin Impeccable Peck, representing the Gen X's. Gen X's, put a little thing in the chat if you have joined us yet. But if not, the stream is building up. Dr. Draper, I'll bounce it over to you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon and hello to everybody who's tuning into the Chicken Box with two X's. That doesn't mean anything like X's and triple X, but I'm representing the boomers. I'm really a boomer millennial. I just want to let you all know. I was in the clubhouse room the other night for like 3 or 4 hours. I don't know how y'all do it, but it was cool. So I'm representing the boomers on today.
Well, good morning. The clubhouse will get you in. It'll hook you in, and you just be listening. Like you'll be laying down listening. Anyway, Misha Green, how are you?
I am doing well. I am happy to be representing for the millennials or the millennial boomers. I, like Dr. Draper, feel like Clubhouse is a lot sometimes. 3 hours and I'm not engaging visually with someone can be very difficult for me. But I'm so proud of my boomer millennial friend because she got us all up in the Clubhouse this week. And guess what, y'all? We reached 10,000 on Instagram. Very, very much in part to her work those 3 hours. And so, first of all, if you're not following us, follow us on Instagram right now. We have a lot going on that social media, as well as you know, on Facebook and Twitter. Also, if you haven't, register for the Black Business Matters Expo. Okay, I'm done.
You mean this Black Business Expo anyway? February the 18th. Okay, look, it's gonna be action packed. Listen, I'll talk more about it later, but just go to afro.com and look for a similar graphic and get registered. It is totally free. Whether you're an emerging business or you need to accelerate your business to the next level, you are going to get some top level information there. And the whole thing is about sharing. And speaking of sharing, if we popped up on the Afro American newspapers feed, please, the little arrow that goes to the right, share on your personal page, share on your group page, because something said today, Misha Green has shared, something said today is going or possibly going to change you or somebody that you know's life. The topic today, Black people versus the speaking business. Whew. Black people versus the speaking business. You ever have a friend that just talks too much? From a child, they just will just talk. They just they just can't stop talking. Then you heard the word, the gift of gab. But we're gonna get all into the gab today. We have a special guest today. And actually, he will be teaching a workshop and appearing in our first ever Black Business Matters Expo. Everybody, let's welcome to the Chicken Box, Mr. Brian Olds. Brian, how are you, my friend?
Hey, listen, I am doing great. I'm feeling some generational pride in the building, and some Baltimore pride. And absolutely, I think I might need to go get a chicken box right after this. But I'm feeling great. Thanks for having me.
What generation are you representing, my friend?
So I am technically a millennial. I mean, Misha, same thing, So I'm definitely an older millennial, I'll say,
All right. We got Byron Deese chiming in.
What's up, Byron? Yeah, Byron is he knows the deal.
We got Reg Lawson, a boomer from Upper Marlboro, chiming in. What's happening? We got some folks starting to chime in. Look, don't be shy, because when you give the little feedback, this is what we're talking about. But today, we would like to welcome you. And just, I don't know if anybody's ever thought of speaking as a business. You know what I mean? You see people on YouTube and you see people on stage, and then you hear you see your great orators and your preachers in the community. But the business of speaking, Brian, you started something special, man. You did something uh, sort of like the Afro did in 1892. You just, you saw a need and you said, nobody's speaking to our people like we do. And you decided, why don't you tell us what inspired you to start the Black Speakers Network?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for sure. And just to be on the presence of the Afro, I think, these organizations to me are an inspiration. But surely we were just talking about Morgan State University, and I am I used to describe myself as a skinny kid from Baltimore, right? And if you had saw me kind of at age 5 or 6, like little Brian, I think there's a picture of me like right behind me back there, you'd have saw me sitting on the living room floor. So I was the kid. Everybody right now is excited about space travel and what's kind of getting reinvigorated in that industry. I was sitting on the floor watching those NASA space shuttle launches and just getting really excited. And I said, you know what? I either want to be an astronaut or I want to be an engineer. Like I want to be the person responsible for literally putting those rockets into space. So I set off on this path, Kevin, to be a aerospace engineer. Like I literally wanted to be a rocket scientist. And so I was, in my room, kind of taking things apart, trying to learn engineering, getting excited about STEM and stuff like that. But I had a couple clues along the way. I probably wasn't going to make it as an engineer. Number one, I was always the kid that would be taking things apart. But when it came to putting them back together, Dr. Draper, not so much. So, but eventually I made it to, I got a scholarship to Baltimore City Community College. From there, was able to matriculate over to Morgan State University, one of the best Black engineering schools in the country. And so I found myself, within earshot of my dream. But I don't know if either of you have taken a little class called Calculus 2, like any of those.
Oh, a little class. He makes that little class for all you mathematicians, the people who really love math out there. Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
Nisha, listen, Kevin, you guys, I made it past 1, made it to Calculus 2. 30 minutes had went by. I was sitting looking at the test. I had nothing on the paper. And so like any good student, I'm sitting out. I was sitting right by the window. So I look out of the window trying to find some inspiration. And lo and behold, I was like, I'm praying. I'm like, God, if you just get me out of this one, I got promise I'll learn this stuff. And I see the answer to the test on the side of a building. It's like the clouds parted, Kevin. I was able to see the answer. And the answer to the test was the Earl G. Graves School of Business and Management. And so I took that as a sign, put the pencil down, went out, left engineering school, signed up for business. And then, that was kind of the end of that journey. But I found myself lost. And I know many, many people actually get into start majors and, feel like we need to have life figured out after high school. And that's just not realistic. And so for me, I was in this space of trying to figure out what my next career journey or what my actual career journey was going to be. And so over at Morgan State University, I stumbled into this organization called Toastmasters. And I think all of us are familiar with it. For the uninitiated, Toastmasters is a global nonprofit organization dedicated to helping individuals become better communicators and better leaders. We were starting a brand new club at Morgan State University. Very few Toastmasters clubs operate on college campuses. Even fewer operate on HBCUs. So we were really energized coming in, these young Black kids, like ready to, take the speaking world by storm. Except for me, I was a certified introvert, Misha, meaning that I didn't feel like I could lead 2 people in silent prayer, let alone try to lead an audience anywhere. And so I joined Toastmasters, not because I wanted to be this great speaker, but I did it, Dr. Draper, because I really thought that by becoming a more effective communicator, I could overcome this fear. And they say everything that you want in life is waiting for you outside of your comfort zone. And I believe that. And so that's what I did. And so Kevin, to answer your question, if you were sitting next to me in that small classroom in the School of Business at Morgan State University in 2006, you would have watched as I stood up, walked to the front of the room nervously to deliver my very first speech in Toastmasters. And Misha, I'm gonna put you on the first row. So if you were sitting in that first row, here's what you would have noticed. You would have noticed my sweaty palms as it struggled to gripped the piece of paper that was shaking in my hand, you would have certainly heard my voice start to crack under the weight of the pressure. And if you missed all of that, you would have seen me pacing back and forth so much. Somebody left the room, the door to the room open. I almost walked out of the room. My friend, I have a Nigerian buddy. He's in here too. His name's Deepo Adesina. He was trying to wave me back into the room. And so all this stuff is happening. Butterflies are flying around. But eventually, guys, I made it through my first presentation. I said, you know what? If I can make it through one presentation, I can make it through two. And then 2 turned into 4, 4 turned into 10. I started speaking outside of Toastmasters. My confidence went up. I actually went into corporate America, went into finance, training and development, diversity and inclusion. And eventually I realized that on the other side of public speaking, there is, as you mentioned, Kevin, this industry of professional speaking. And I was honestly just disappointed with the representation, particularly with some of the national organizations that were dedicated to serving speakers at the time. And so not seeing really any millennials. And, you know, coming from Morgan, we all came from HBCUs. We bring a little bit of swagger to everything. So I said, okay, if we can't find it, like any great entrepreneur, we're going to build it. And so in 2016, we started Black Speakers Network.
Boom. Black Speakers Network. Anybody out there just itching to speak, dying to learn about the speaking business? Man, at the Chicken Box, this is where you get a chance to speak your truth about any subject. Today we're dealing with Black people versus the speaking business, everybody. And, you know, and we're not talking about the speaking business that sometimes people end up on the news. You know, like where do sometimes they find our brothers and sisters when the story hit? You know what I mean? The big story hit, and all of a sudden the camera just zooms and they think that that's their, well, I'm on the box for 30 seconds. That one image of an African American speaking at that moment, maybe off guard, maybe not having a total command of the King's English or the hood. They have a total knowledge of the hood's English though, because you know we understand them exactly what they're saying. But sometimes we say, could it have been said different? Maybe, but not by them. They said it the way that they said it, but that seems like that's the only person they catch on the street. When Brian Olds is right there next to him, they could have asked him and he could have got a proper description. So that was my 30 seconds on the box. Don't judge one comment. You know what I mean? And try to throw it into the total. So Misha Green, I put the 2 millennials up top so y'all can, you know, touch and agree up on top level tonight. Let me give you 30 seconds on the box. You know, what do you think about when you hear the word the speaking business?
So great question. I think when I hear the speaking business, I now automatically go to what I know in terms of people getting compensated for being motivational speakers or inspirational. As everyone knows, we've talked about it on the show a lot. I'm a PK. So I come from people who have been compensated for public speaking, but very, very different, right? And as a pastor, you know, you're doing a lot more than public speaking. And I grew up, obviously, maybe not obvious, but I think you guys know I might have the gift of gab a little bit. And so, you know, I grew up always being the one who had to be the presenter for the group presentation. I went to an art school for middle school, high school, and majored in theater in college. So I was always having to public speak, but I did not think about it in terms of an option for a position or career, or even for purposes of moving masses. That's something that I've become far more familiar with in my adult life. Obviously, as a journalist, I'm a storyteller. As an actress, I was a storyteller, but I think that's a little bit different than what I'm learning about public speaking and what public speaking is as a career. So that's what my familiarity with it. TED Talks, all of that sort of got me into the world of it.
Okay, well, that's what came to your mind. Dr. Draper, who has been publicly speaking for, I think, all my life, but what comes to
That's
mind?
because you've been hearing me in your head all all of your life. Full transparency for those who don't know, Kevin is my oldest son, and so yeah, so you've been hearing my voice for a long time. But Brian, just like you know, I'm an introverted extrovert. I like people, but I like my space. But then I realized at a really early age that I like to talk, right? And so, but I'd like to talk to a purpose, to an end. And no one could understand. And you know, even when I was in the seventh grade, I entered a declamation contest. Y'all don't ask me why I memorized Woodrow Wilson's speech at the Treaty of Paris. Don't ask. But anyway, so did that and did a lot of speaking contests, but never looked at it, Brian, as a career until I was called into ministry. And you know, speaking, that's not for profit. It shouldn't be for profit, not for PROFIT, maybe for profit, PROPHET. But I do a lot of speaking. Maybe I ought to hook up with you, Brian, and that'll be my next career when I'm not doing this anymore. But I love to talk. Did some school teaching, which, you know, what a lot of school teachers don't realize, they have wonderful public speaking skills, especially if you're standing in front of young people and you're motivating them all day long. If you're a good teacher, to do what, you know, to learn some things and to learn them creatively. So I'm hats off to you, brother, for starting that business that started with Toastmasters. A shout out to Morgan State University, which really trains leaders, regardless of the discipline. Morgan trains leaders and gives you, a lot of platform. Let me ask you, Brian, when you were at Morgan, Kevin, when you were at Morgan, did you all have to pass the speech proficiency test? We had to do it. Oh yeah,
big time
proficiency test, right?
Well, I feel like every class is like a speech because we all had to give presentations pretty much.
Right, but this was like you had to do a writing proficiency and you had to do a speech proficiency. That was a requirement. You had to pass that and actually do that in front of a large audience. So HBCUs prepared us for public speaking as well. And so kudos to you for that. Love the fact that you turned it into a business. Wish you much success in that. Can't wait to get a little deeper into this conversation because, you know, I think about when Misha was talking about being a PK, you know, the Lord asked Moses, say, what do you have in your hand? When people say, I don't know what I can do. I don't have this gift. I don't have this talent. But use what you have. That's why people are making $1 gazillion on YouTube telling you how to put a nail, you know, into a box that you can figure out by yourself, but you sit there and watch that YouTube anyway, and you're just as engaged by who presents it as you are about what the outcome is. Oh, did I tell y'all I could talk to? Okay, I'm off the box. I'm off.
Right, you were on the box. And
I'm off.
I had some salt and pepper came, some ketchup. If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box where we speak our truth, and we gather on Thursdays. But did you know that the Afro-American newspaper that has been around since 1892, informing, inspiring, and educating Black, Afro, African Americans, whatever you call yourself, if you get a little brown, black, and beige, we are here to be the voice and to fact check everything that's going on. But the fact is that we need to do more speaking business together, and we need to do more business together. And we have our very own. We're going to claim him because he's from Baltimore and he went to Morgan State University. Everybody, all of Morgan State, the MSU grads, put it in the chat, or if you went to another HBCU, shout it out where you're tuning in from. But we are having on February 18th, Brian Olds. I'm going to see if I can find his flyer. Here it is. He will be speaking at the first ever Black Business Matters Virtual Expo. Go to afro.com and register. It is free. The spots will limit. I mean, we may expand it, but registration is going very quickly, and we're glad that we have Brian Olds not only at the conference, but here to really just ignite your mind about the speaking business. Misha, there has been some stereotypes, and I didn't forget your question, Dr. Draper. Yes, and Speech 101 at Morgan State University. I think all of us were a little nervous that time when you had to get up and they start counting the uhs and the ums that you begin to say, and now you look down, you scratching your head, and everything else is going through. I think everybody, if your first time speaking, has had some kind of sweaty palm. Even if you didn't know what a sweaty palm was, you felt it up there as all eyeballs just pass to you. Misha, stereotypes. What have you been hearing out there in those digital streets? Because we can't wait to get you back on the real streets, but we'll go with the digital streets.
Yeah, although for all the millennials tuning in, if they say if I'm on the streets, then I have some other problems. But I don't like to get back to the streets either.
Okay.
Yes, and let me just weigh in really quickly on what Dr. Draper said. I did not have to take a speech 101 or anything, but Dr. Draper can relate with me on this. Remember having to do it in Spanish, right? Your presentations in Spanish in college. I know, and having the ums in there, and then you don't know if you have the right emphasis on a word. That was another level for me of public speaking fear. All right, that said.
Right.
Oh, gosh.
Hola. That's my only Spanish for the day, I think.
Like, como se dice en inglés.
Un día, we'll do it. Vamos a ver. Entonces, stereotypes. Now, as always, I must say these are solely stereotypes, not necessarily facts and or opinions endorsed by the Afro. And yes, I got this from the digital streets. So you have to be outgoing to be a good public speaker is a stereotype, which Brian has already helped combat a little bit today. We'll talk about that further. You have to be funny and witty to be a good public speaker. People who are public speakers have others write their speeches in order to be inspirational and effective. Public speaking is an easy way of making money. Public speaking isn't a real job. Who needs public speakers when you have Instagram, YouTube, things of that nature? And you have to code switch as a Black person to be a strong public speaker, AKA speak or act white. So those are
this is
stereotypes.
This is going to be you just wrote our content calendar for like the next couple months. I would love to address all of those in detail.
No, I know that you can't do the nitty gritty addressing of those stereotypes today, but that's why we have you here to combat these things. There were even more. One that I thought was interesting was the notion of, why do you even need public speakers at this juncture? And of course, we'll talk about later when we go into the history. But I remember learning at a very young age the effective communication and ethos, pathos, and legos. And people were going into that kind of thing, being like, public speaker even uses that to this day. And I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to have that.
Well, yeah, I think, when I started Black Speakers Network, one of my objectives, and again, coming through Toastmasters is a really phenomenal experience. But one of the things we really wanted to do was elevate this industry of professional speaking, which really public speaking is really a subsection of a broader industry that we consider information marketing. And so really it's anything, anytime you're taking something out of your head, repackage it, repurposing it, and delivering it to an audience, you're really doing that. And so, it's hard to get like core numbers on professional speaking, but what we do have numbers on is what we call the self-help industry. And so there are companies like Market Data, for example. They do a report every other year. So the last one was 2019. We should have a new one coming out this year. So they actually track the industry. Guys, this is 11. So of the overall industry, they classify under what we call the self-improvement industry, or some people like to say the self-help industry. How large do you think that industry is?
It has to be massive because everyone needs self-help and self-improvement.
10 billion.
Yeah, well, Kevin is finally attuned to the human condition. So yes, it is $11 billion annual industry, and these was
I totally pulled that out.
you were so close. Yeah, and actually, it's probably closer to 15 once we get the new numbers for 2020. Because one thing that we've seen is this is a market that has experienced double-digit growth over the last 10 years, and so. $11 billion. Now, what does that mean? So that includes everything from folks who are doing infomercials, self-help programs, audiobooks, seminars, podcasts, weight loss programs, coaching, consulting, audiobooks, you name it. But if you parse out, because a lot of people, and I love these questions, when you think about professional speakers, a lot of times people just pigeonhole to like motivational speakers. And so we could look at that, as of 2018, there were roughly 5,000 plus what people would classify as motivational speakers in the US. And just of those 5,000, they brought in collectively over $1 billion in revenue. And the top 9 guys brought in over $188 million. And so looking at that, the market opportunity was definitely there. I think for BSN, it was more of a campaign. Like, our mission is to equip, connect, and inspire the next generation of Black professional speakers. Next generation has nothing to do with age. It has to do with people who self-select, like you, Dr. Draper, and you're like, hey, I know I have a message. I definitely have an audience. I have this life experience. I have this expertise. I have things that I love. Let me go connect with an audience. And so we just wanted to raise the visibility that, yes, this is a viable industry. And it doesn't matter if you self-identify as a motivational speaker, a keynote speaker, a corporate trainer, a coach, a consultant. You are creating content and putting it out into the world. And so BSN is there to help you with that.
Absolutely. If you just tuned in, you popped in, we came on your stream. I think everybody here has already shared. If you haven't, share it. This is the Chicken Box. It is Black people versus the speaking business. We are shedding some light on some stereotypes about speaking. Have you thought about speaking? Have you wanted to be a speaker? Do you know where to start? The Black Speakers Network is the place to start if you need the information. If these things are running through your head, Brian had the same thought. He said it was not enough information for us. So instead of trying to join them, he started his own. Sometimes, you find something missing, and that's the beauty of business. Black business is alive. It is thriving, and we need to connect with each other. So I know you said you wanted to get on the list, but let me see, Dr. Draper. Let me go to my script. We do script this out a little bit, people. But let me have you answer. Is that okay if I go off script for a second? Let me have you answer one of these public speaking stereotypes. Public speaking is an easy way of making money.
You want me to answer that, or you want Brian to answer that?
Brian.
Yeah, right. And Brian should answer that.
I'm going to ask you about something Egyptian. Okay.
What?
Okay, so here's the deal. Is it easy to make money? I think that it's somewhat of a loaded question, but in general, I would say for anytime someone new comes into Black Speakers Network, the number one question, we have 11,000 members in our community. We have over 600 folks in our premium program. The number one question everybody asks, you all could probably guess it, how do I find paid speaking engagements? That's always what everybody wants to know. And so embedded in that question, however, is a couple fundamental things. And so when you are figuring out, number one, when you make the decision to become a speaker, there's no, to my knowledge, any professional speaking curriculum at Morgan State University or any other public or private school. And so we created our own. We created our own curriculum to be able to teach the business of speaking. And so we package it into a model. My background is instructional design and adult learning. So I'm very passionate about making sure that people, you got to give people a framework to step into so they can reach the goals that they want. So for us, it's what we call the 5 M's. And so in every person that comes into our organization, everything that we talk about goes into these 5 areas of expertise. And so it is getting clarity on, number one, your mission, which is basically who is my target audience, what pain or problem am I solving, and what's my process to get them there. So we get on clarity on your mission. Next is your message. And that's kind of like the core Toastmasters element. In Toastmasters, you're not learning about the business of speaking. You're learning how to speak. how to create an effective opening, a body, conclusion, transitions, vocal variety, hand gestures, storytelling, getting rid of the filler words, as you said, Kevin. My favorite one was like. I would say like. Every other sentence was a like or So, learning those speaking skills. And so that's your message. The third thing is your marketing. You could be the best speaker in the world, Misha, but it doesn't matter if nobody can find you. We have no idea who you are. And so making sure that you have professional elements in place, such as a professionally written bio, a headshot, a speaker press kit. I'm sure the Afro, you're reaching out to experts all the time. And these are basic things that you just need as a thought leader. And so essentially want to make sure your marketing is on point. Number 4 is how to monetize. Now we went through mission, message, marketing, and now we're just now getting to monetize. Going back to your question, Kevin, because before, if you don't have clarity on who your target audience is, if you don't have clarity on the message that you are attempting to create and you get good at those skills, and if you don't have the right materials, then it's going to be very difficult to monetize your message effectively. And then number 5 is lastly, how to manage your speaking business. And this is why I'm so grateful that I did end up at the great Earl G. Graves School of Business at Morgan State University, because this comes down to business 101. If this is what separates people who are public speakers from professional speakers, you want to make sure that you are setting your business up as a LLC, making sure that you are have your accounting system set up, making sure that you are actually using speaker contracts, that you're tracking your relationships. And so all these things are important in order to build an effective speaking business. So to answer your question, is it easy to make money? It could be. Everybody has a different entry point into the business. And so if you already have a really dynamic topic, if you already have clarity on who your target market is, and you're just having to go out there and find the individuals that need your message, it could be very easy without even any structure in place. But if you don't have some of the fundamentals in place, it might be a little bit of a struggle. Boom.
That was the 5 M's, everybody. Type in the chat if you got them all. Let's see. Let's see if y'all were paying attention out there. Let's see. I'm going to wait. Sherry said, don't forget the word in your speech as well. So Brian said, like, you know what I mean? And you know what? I asked some people from Philly and they will always say, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And what do they say in DC? Youngin. No, I mean, what other words, what are those filler words that when you're talking that you don't even realize that you say, and it just becomes a way of your vernacular and your vocabulary. That was great of one. And the other one, I think that people really want to know when it says, do you have to code switch as a Black person to be a strong public speaker? That was a good one, Misha. Do you have to code switch? Do you have to speak in your white English voice? And do you have to put on a certain air when you come to the podium and get in front of the microphone and say, or can you be like, yo, like, you know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, do you have to code switch?
Is that who's the question for?
All of these are for you.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, here's my thing. We
leaning on you without taking the course, but we're gonna take the course, y'all. We're gonna take the course. Go ahead.
So here's the deal. So at Morgan State University, very unique experience, and that was one of the things that made me appreciate going to HBCU. I'm actually writing a book right now about being a first generation entrepreneur, but I'm also a first generation college student. I'm first generation everything, So we're learning as we go, and so nobody in my family pledged, or nobody knew what it was like to fight for financial aid and stand in line at Montebello and all this stuff. So it's very much a new experience. But I think part of what we really double down on in BSN is one word, and that's authenticity. And so oftentimes when speakers are starting out, the tendency is to want to mimic other professional speakers. So some major hitters that I grew up and, still respect to this day are people like Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, Eric Thomas, who was going to be, speaking at Black Business Mat. amazing speaker. Like Eric Thomas, like within a few minutes, most people are like, wow, I didn't know you could speak like that. But you don't want to be the next Eric Thomas. A lot of people, I cringe when people say, I want to be the next Oprah. I want to be the next, Obama. Like, you don't want to be the next anybody. Like, you want to be the first you, and you want to be the best version of that possible. And so going to the topic of code switching and stuff like that, hey, if you came from the South, you're probably going to have a little bit of Southern accent. You don't need to sound like somebody from Vermont or somebody from the Midwest or somebody from the West Coast. If that's part of you, then let it be a part of you. And so what we focus on from the authenticity perspective is actually leveraging some of those things that you may not have been proud of. A lot of people don't like the sound of their own voice. When you record yourself and listen to it back, you're like, oh, that's me. Yeah, that's you. And it's a good thing. And other people are going to those same things that you may not particularly like about yourself are the same elements, the same traits that other people are going to embrace and gravitate towards. And so don't worry about, fitting into a norm. I would say double down on the things that make you authentic and that will allow you to better connect with whoever your audience is. Now, if you're going into an organization and their culture is, we wear polos. May I throw on polo? Okay, fine. Throw on a polo. But at the same time, if you're hiring me for Brian Oles, then you're hiring me. You're not hiring, somebody from your organization. So I think it's very important that we continue to work on, fundamental skills, but without losing the core of who we are as people.
Absolutely. Sherry said yes. Jules, congratulations, Brian. Josetta said, nope, you better not compromise your authenticity. Never. Chippy Bass said, I shared the Black Speakers Network. It's so long. Let me just pull it up. But I love you. And she was definitely, if you are shy and hide before the podium, just try. You will definitely be surprised.
And shout out to Chippy, because Chippy actually shared this. So we met through Toastmasters.
Well, Chippy, mentor. You holding out on us, Chippy? Okay.
Yeah.
Let us find out. And
I know she follows and loves the Afro. She actually sent me my flyer before I saw it. So like I definitely want to give a shout out. She's been consistently supporting not just me and Toastmasters and Black Speakers Network, but also has been a really strong advocate for the Afro and all the programming that you all do. So shout out to Chippy.
So now, Dr. Draper, I will come to you in an Egyptian kind of manner. There is evidence, or is there evidence of public speaking and training in ancient Egypt? This is a question that popped up through our research, Dr. Draper.
Okay, all right. So there is evidence that people have been training to speak like they're trained to do anything else for centuries, but not like Brian Oles can do it. So Brian, thank you for combating some of those stereotypes as well. Ancient Egypt, 2,500 years ago in Athens. Athens is in Greece, though not in Egypt. They were doing public speaking training. And so citizens would meet in a marketplace and detail issues on war or economics or politics. And good speaking skills were also essential for prominent social life and mixing with the wealthy. So they actually taught public speaking. And so Aristotle and Quintilian, famous speakers of that time, and Aristotle is the one that's credited with defining the term rhetoric. So he broke down rhetoric, as Misha has already said, into ethos and logos and pathos. And so Quintilian did this 12-step rhetoric presentation, and Cicero, famous rhetoric scholar at that time. And so public speaking was major during that time, but it was also major during the time of abolitionism. And it's been a major for a variety of careers even now. And so some public speaking is taught, some public speaking is caught. Let me say that again. Sometimes it's taught, sometimes it's caught, but I agree with you, Brian. Be you, do you.
Yes.
And yeah. A lot of people who are on this broadcast already know, in addition to being a publisher, I'm also a preacher. And I say to young preachers that I train, TD Jakes is TD Jakes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Bishop Vashti McKenzie is Bishop Vashti McKenzie. I mean, you know, you have a message to convey in your style, because one thing people can read right away is when you are trying to imitate. Now, imitate, they say, is the highest form of flattery, and so we have flatter. You know, we honor people when we quote them, but imitation doesn't always get you the same result that they may get. And so you're saying,
Absolutely.
wait a minute, I've memorized everything they said. I watched when they said, you know, when they held back their head and gave a shout and a stomp, but it didn't have the same result, because you have to do what God has placed in you to do, and do it the way that you are wired to do it. And so some of us are extemporaneous speakers, some of us are manuscript speakers, some of us are not speakers at all. We're more listeners, but whatever our lane is, that's where we ought to stay.
I love that.
Dr. Draper. Obviously, I'm always inspired by you, but I'm writing down your quotes as well right now. But I do want to say and piggyback on that, just because I've had the honor of watching you in action because of the pandemic, and seeing you. And one of the things that I think is really effective about you as a preacher and a pastor is that it's the Dr. Draper that I know who is preaching and teaching and educating and inspiring. And I think that is what makes you so incredibly good at what you do. So I just
thank you, Misha. But it goes back to what Brian said: be the authentic you. I don't know how to be anybody but me. So I am like you, Misha. I'm a storyteller. That's my style. And I try to make what I'm talking about relatable to, you know, what's happening contemporarily, as well as what's happening biblically when I'm preaching. But the same thing when I'm speaking. And so a lot of times I'm going to say this make Brian help me with this.
Sure.
Sometimes we over prepare. Now, I don't mean you shouldn't prepare. You always should prepare. But we overthink the preparation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that and I can comment on that. I'm glad you brought up Aristotle, because earlier Misha was asking, presentation skills, is public speaking, is professional speaking outdated because of these, emerging technologies and some of the things that we're seeing. And the reality is that going back 2,500 years, like you just documented, being the art of elocution, to communicate, to effectively transfer a thought from one person into another. The idea of speaking, live presentation, especially like we're doing now, there's always going to be something powerful about the person-to-person connection that yields. And that actually goes to your point, Dr. Draper, which is around, over preparing, because that was me. Like in Toastmasters, I mean, I probably practiced that 4-minute presentation. I didn't tell you that was a 4-minute presentation with the sweaty palms, the shaky voice, but I practiced that thing at home. I practiced in front of my mother, the cat, like everybody heard that presentation. And so it was a very robotic, because my goal at that point wasn't to move the audience to greatness or to transform lives. My goal was to survive. My goal was to get through it. And so I did that. And so I think once you get to a certain point as a speaker, you move beyond the place of just wanting to speak to get through it and focus on the audience. And so what I call it is placing connection over content. Your ability to relate with the audience is the reason that you're there. If people just needed your information, if people just wanted content, we could have just emailed the PowerPoint. We could have just, sent a letter or some other form of communication. So people are there to hear, to see you, and to feel you as a speaker. And there are elements that you can do to control that. The other thing is that most of the time, we're not there just to speak about what we know. And going back to the business of speaking, this is another big misconception that's out there, is that, if I'm just a good speaker, then I'll be a highly paid speaker. And it doesn't translate, because, people don't pay speakers to come entertain. That's maybe a very small % of the market. Most speakers are getting paid because you are excellent at solving a problem. I'm bringing you in to actually transform my audience. We want to become better salespeople. We want to have better relationships. We want to be better leaders. We want to, learn a new technology or skill. And so as a speaker, you need to really, we're not paying for your just ability to get up and, say a bunch of words. We're paying really for your perspective. And that perspective lives within context of what you've done in your own life and business and how you're able to translate that over to your audience. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I think technology, if anything, has really amplified our ability to reach so many more people, which is a great example of what we're doing with the Black Business Matters Expo. The fact that now here on the Facebook page, you can instantly talk to 600,000 people. How hard would it have been to get 600,000 people in one room or a Coliseum? We would have needed like Madison Square Gardens or something like that. And so I think now that just has been amplified.
Absolutely. I was stuck on wait a minute. ELOCUTI. What did you
Elocution.
Elocution. I never heard that in my life, I don't think. And I don't know if anybody else did. So I had to look it up. Look, don't try to act smart all the time just because you're around smart people. You better pull that phone out and be like, elocution. The skill of clear and expressive speech. I have heard that before, especially in the pronunciation and enunciation efforts. So managing singers, when singers used to pronounce lines, we used to have a vocal coach, and the vocal coach would always say, make sure that you pronounce and you enunciate your phrases and your syllables clearly. So I've heard it, but the elocution, oh my goodness. Anyway, if you just tuned in, this is Black People versus the speaking business. Everybody can do better. Everybody can work on communication, even if it's not for pay. It could be just for passion, and it could be for just I always like to say the 4 C's: communication cancels confusion. If you can communicate that idea clearly, even in your household, in your business, and the people you deal with, you will have a better time and get along. But you mentioned something. If you came in late, February 18th, our very own, we have adopted him. Brian Olds will be speaking. He will be speaking along with everybody. That's right. I'm sorry to clear our face out, but just for this, afro.com. This is the virtual Black Business Matters Expo with billionaire Robert Smith. We have Egypt Sherrod, TV host and radio host in this Baltimore, D.C. market and around the country. And we have Eric Thomas. We said the hip hop preacher will be there. Brian Olds, you're going to be there. This is going to be an amazing day. And guess what? It is absolutely free to register. Go to afro.com. There are only a few spots left. Afro.com. We're going to do business the way that we need to do business, with excellence. And we're going to give information. And
just shout out to y'all for curating such an amazing program, because what you're seeing here is such a rich cross section of industry expertise. You got folks from entertainment, Robert Smith, of course, being, he's like everything. He's like Tony Stark. So he's like an inventor, an engineer, a philanthropist, an entrepreneur, but you have so many different perspectives that you're bringing to the table. So I just want to kudos to get into the Afro. One, for this is, obviously the pandemic hasn't been ideal for a number of reasons, but to be able to pivot in this way and produce something that is so needed at this time, I think is commendable. So great job on that.
Thank you. And listen, we also are honoring Eddie Brown. He'll get the inaugural Black Business Matters Expo Person of the Year award. And so that's major. If you don't know who Eddie Brown is, look him up. And when Kevin says there are but a few slots left, people say that sometimes but this really, there are only a few slots left. We have registered over 500 people. We thought 500 was going to be our cap, Brian, because it's virtual and we wanted to make sure that it was done well. So we had capped it at 500. When we approached 500, we opened it up for 250. I don't know if we can go above that. People are registering at record numbers, and so it is free. Come on and register. And if you have a business, a small business that you want to showcase during Black Business Matters Expo, let us know. Kevin, give us an email. There's a small cost to that, a small cost, but it's under $200. You can showcase your business. You can be a vendor. You can, have your own booth at the Black Business Matters Expo. So, Kevin,
once you go to afro.com and click on it, all the information is there.
Okay, great.
Because I can't memorize that. Or I haven't tried to memorize that person's email at this moment. I can't. It's not in my vocabulary. All right, you got to do 10 push-ups for that one. Anyway, if you just tuned in, take can't out of your life for 2021. Take it out of your life forever. Won't, can't. All of those are excuses when you say, and definitely take out try, because you can always fall back on, well, I tried and it didn't work. No, trying isn't doing. So let's be doers as we push forward. And Misha, it is always, this is what blows my mind about the Afro-American newspaper, y'all, in 1892. We have so many facts, and each week we give an Afro fact. What is this week's fact? I'm looking so forward to it, Misha.
Hey, Misha, before you do it, are we going to come back to Black Business Matters Expo, Kevin, before we?
Oh, we're going to come. We can go on that for 10 straight minutes if you like.
No, I have a shout out to give to our sponsors, but come on, Misha.
No, I was going to do it now, Dr. Draper. So you go ahead and get it, because you might know. I'm like on my article that I wrote last week, making sure I have the right sponsors. So you probably should say it.
Well, your article you wrote last week was fantastic. Speaking of articles, let me give a plug for the Afro-American newspapers coverage for our content. This week, full front page, Cicely Tyson, as well as our whole A section is dedicated to Cicely Tyson, with pictures from the archives of the Afro that you will not have seen anyplace else. Why? Because when folk were covering her in her early days of her career, she wasn't making it in the publications that did not look like us. But we have exclusive pictures of her there. But what I wanted to say for Black Business Matters Expo, give a shout out to JP Morgan Chase that stepped up to the plate, and for Comcast, and for T. Rowe Price, and for M&T Bank, and I'm going to forget somebody, Baltimore Development Corporation, and shout out to every single speaker who is going to participate as well. Brian Oles, I really am looking forward to your workshop.
Thank you so much.
I know you just gave us a little bit of what you're going to do on the 18th. So I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited as well. It's going to be a great event. I'll give that presentation, and then I'm going right into student mode to learn from the other speakers as well. So it's going to be great.
That makes
come to give and come to receive. You hear that, people? Come to give on February 18th and come to receive. And your gift could be just sharing afro.com with people who may have never heard of you. Said, you guys have been around for 128 years and I didn't know about it. But now you know. So now that you know, you can share. So let's get this week's Afro fact.
Yes, it is time. It is time. So this week's Afro fact is inspired by February 3rd, 1962. And that's when the Afro's headline was about desegregating restaurants in Baltimore. The headline read, "While the fight goes on downtown, uptown does it too." It talked about how there were demonstrations in downtown Baltimore to desegregate restaurants. However, the reporter, James D. Williams, and you guys have heard his name before on an Afro Fact, noted that there were tons of restaurants in uptown Baltimore patronized by Black residents for their carryout services, but did not allow Black people to dine there. And Williams straight up called out specific places like Club Grill and the White Coffee Spot. And there's even photos of these restaurants that would not allow Black people to dine there. This is why the Afro is so epic, because everyone was covering the downtown demonstrations, but this guy, Brian Williams, said, oh, no. Let's also call the people out uptown and say, hey, you guys need to open your establishments up for the Black residents, who is the majority living here. And that's this week's Afro Fact.
Wow, did he say you guys? hey, you guys. Is that what he said back then?
Yeah, but I was amazed that he called out these restaurants and said, hey, it's a major problem that no one's even talking about, the fact that that people are spending all this money. Black people are spending money for carry out services. They live in the neighborhood, and yet you won't let them dine in your establishments. I mean, that was really avant-garde for that time, but we were the Afro. So we are the Afro and we were then. So of course he called them out and talked about it.
That was a great fact. The fact that you could even get two Brians together. You know, we got a Brian who's calling out speakers, and then we got a Brian who's calling out restaurants. Wow. Guys, Black people versus the speaking business. The speaking business is all around you. And it's not just public speaking. Brian, you even went in to say that it's sometimes just training people in a skill that an organization needs, or that someone needs to just move them a little to the left, to the right, or just to get them centered when they've gone off and they bring in somebody different. Because sometimes, and you can learn this in your own house, the people you love can tell you something that's absolutely right for you, and you don't listen to it until you hear it. Sometimes.
Real talk. It's hard to be a prophet in your own hometown, I think is what they say. So,
he's quoting y'all. Anyway, this is Black people versus the speaking business, and it is going to be in full effect on February 18th. Brian Olds will be. What is your work? Give us all a quick 30-second commercial of your workshop, Brian.
Yeah, so I'm actually going into the 5 M's that I mentioned. There's actually a 6th secret M that you'll have to come to learn about. So look forward to that. But generally speaking, if you are someone who is getting ready or just excited about starting a speaking business, and so you're what we will call an aspiring speaker, and you're like, hey, how do I get started? This would be a place to come. If you're already speaking, and again, Kevin, as you mentioned, this could live in multiple places. About 40% of our membership are, traditional entrepreneurs that really just are looking to leverage speaking to grow their business and gain more visibility. And so regardless of what bucket you fall into, I think you'll have something to get out of it. So I'll be going over the 6 M's of building a profitable speaking business there. And I'm looking forward to share.
If you missed it, you're going to have to rewind and listen to the M's. I was looking for y'all. We were going to give a special prize away for those with Dr. Draper gave the answer. So you can scroll up and cheat, like an open book test, because the 5 M's were given already. So 30 seconds. This is what we like to call the hot grease. That's just whatever is on your mind. All right. We're going to just step in for the chicken box for 30 seconds. We'll let Brian go last. We'll let Dr. Draper go first. All right, you're on the box. 30 seconds. Thanks for everybody who's been commenting. And it looks like Michael from India. Thanks for tuning in. I don't know what time it is there. Put it in the chat. I know it's a time difference. Probably the lights are out probably over there right now. Dr. Draper.
Thank you, Brian J. Olds, for everything that you've imparted to us today. It was very inspirational and informational. And so I'm sure that all of us, including the hosts, have received something that we can use going forward. I really appreciate the fact that you made a distinction between professional and public speaking, because a lot of people do public speaking. It's not necessarily professional speaking. It may look glamorous on the outside, but you're talking about speaking as a career. I'm also happy that you spoke to the fact that we should be authentic in our speaking. And you didn't speak to this. Maybe on another time we'll have you back. There are some people I've noticed in the chat who say, you know what, I'm not called to speak. That's not who I am. I do something else. I'm gifted another way. And I think there's room for people to be who they are without any excuse. But for those who are watching, or those who will come to your workshop on February 18th or watch it in the rebroadcast, can't wait to hear all of the nuggets that you're going to drop that day. So wish you much success, mother, and thank you for being on Chicken Box today.
Absolutely. I'll go next. I squared. I love that. She said inspirational and informational. I'm going to use that. I just hear words that come in, and what stood out to me, and I wasn't even going to talk about this, Dr. Draper, but in business, it's not a hobby. So anybody who thinks business is a hobby, then you have it mixed up. Business, you want to make money, okay? That is what your goal is when you are doing a business. And hopefully you can do it so well that you can fire your boss Not if you work for the Afro, but you can fire your boss. No, actually, we applaud you if you decide to start your own business, and we give you support. We have launched a lot of careers and a lot of people who've gone on to start their business, but it is making money. And Brian said professional. All professionals, even if you call yourself a professional, the difference is if you're making money. Okay, just like a professional singer, opposed to all the singers that can sing on the local church, all of the people who speak. And when you put that professional in front of your name, some income should be coming. Now, some people are professional. I'm not even going to say those words of thinking, but you throw them for me and it start with BS. But they usually don't make money. But if all the other professionals, the doctors, the lawyers, the basketball players, the football players, the professionals that you think about earn income. And when you become a professional speaker, you should be earning some kind of income. So that's why you prep. And that's why you need to go check out the Black Speakers, but it's blackspeakersnetwork.com. But even though we like to say the Black Speakers, because that's how we talk, but it is blackspeakersnetwork.com. And that is my box time for the day. Misha Green, I'm going to bounce past it to you. We're going to save it to our expert for last.
Alrighty, so I again want to thank Brian J. Olds so much for your creativity, for your bravery, and your ability to see the need and make the Black Speakers Network happen. And so again, I thank you for being on the show today, and I'm really inspired. And I encourage everyone to make sure you register for February 18th so you can hear people like Brian and others. I'm registered. I really love my job at the Afro. I don't plan on opening a business anytime soon, but I am registered solely because of the fact that I know that we all are our own business and our own brands in a sense. And so I'm learning how to elevate my brand as an employee of the Afro-American newspapers. And as a representative of Afro Media, I want to know that my business as Misha Patrice Green is doing what I need to do. And I think that for those of you out there who are still, undecided on being an entrepreneur, still make sure you register because I'm in that boat with you, but I know that you can gain a lot. I also, while I'm on the box, I saw some people saying hi to me and joining in. One was Josetta Robinson. Miss Josie has literally known me my whole life. She's also a great public speaker, but I just wanted to say hello because she's been commenting and saying great things in the comments, and she also said hello to me. And hi to both of the Jules who said hello in the comments, and all of our Afro family who consistently supports us and is really our inspiration to keep going. We thank you so much. And I'll hop off the box.
Wow, you Jules, you mix me up because I've just been scrolling down and I'm just the Jules, they're the Jules of the Chicken Box and the Afro. Thank you, ladies. You always come through and you always get the comment count up, and we appreciate the engagement. Brian J. Olds. Well, I learned today, Misha, I didn't know your middle name was Patrice. Now you said Misha Patrice.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, and Brian J. Olds is
Yes.
What's the J? Or should it be a mystery like the 6M?
Nope. It's a I'm actually very proud of it. My middle name is Jay, which is James is my name, and it's named after my grandfather, who was the person who actually introduced me to the Afro. I just learned this story from my mom. His mother, so my great grandmother, they're from Franklin, Virginia. So they used to they would go to Franklin a few times a year, and every time they could not come in that city without bringing a copy of the Afro, a few copies from Baltimore down to Franklin, because his mom wanted to know what was going on in the city and around the world. So very, very much.
There's the J, everybody. And shout out to Franklin, Virginia. Near what?
It's at Newport News, Suffolk. Like it's 15 miles north of the North Carolina border. So
boom,
very small.
Thank you for bringing Franklin to the Afro map and to everybody else, unless you're from Franklin or you're from Newport News and you knew it already. But thank you for sharing that. And my grandfather's name is James as well. Go ahead, Brian. Finish.
All right.
Finish.
Well, first of all, this has been a phenomenal experience. Thank you so much again to Afro. Thank you to everyone that's hanging out with us. I'm seeing all the people online, and shout out to everybody in the BSN community. Hashtag BSN in the building. I'm super excited about February 18th, and I might take the rest of the day off. This is just incredible. But my closing thought is, I opened the story saying that I was a skinny kid from Baltimore, certified introvert, couldn't lead two people in silent prayer, and I at one point in my life felt like a failure because I didn't finish engineering school. And what I later on realized through this journey of, becoming a speaker, starting Black Speakers Network, I left my full-time job last year, or actually in 2019 now, 2019, April 12th, and I never looked back. And, one of the things I realized about those engineering ambitions is that I thought that I wanted to be an engineer because I wanted to, be a technologist. And that wasn't really necessarily the case. I just wanted to be a part of something big. I wanted to leave a legacy and I wanted to make an impact. And so now, even though I'm not building spaceships, I have the opportunity and the pleasure of being able to build people every single day. And so I shared that story initially of the sweaty palms and the shaking voice, because I want you to know that if you're in this space and you're thinking about getting started as a speaker, or maybe you're already an entrepreneur and you're just trying to figure out how to get to the next level, I want to tell you, being 15 years in, there are very few challenges that cannot eventually be overcome with consistent effort. Very few challenges that cannot be eventually overcome with consistent effort. And so if you're in that place, I'm going to recommend that you definitely come join us on the 18th. If you're interested in Black Speakers Network, highly recommend. We have a free community here on Facebook, so just plug in there, and I'm happy to help any way that I can. To the Afro, absolutely love you guys. Looking forward to the catalyst that's going to start on the 18th, because that's not going to be the end. That's just the beginning, of this journey that we're taking. So thank you. And as we say at BSN, keep speaking up because your audience awaits.
Boom. Your audience awaits. We thank the Afro American newspaper for everything they've done and everything they continue to do. You can get a subscription, digital or with the Legacy Edition. It's only $100. You say $100, what happens to $100? But it gets mailed directly to your house. You don't have to go find it. You don't have to go to the store. And that great paper that came to Franklin, Virginia can also come directly. If you say, I am not into the newspaper, by the way, when you get the paper, the Legacy Edition, you do get the digital subscription. If you say I'm all digital, I'm beyond the physical, you can still do that. Go to afro.com and hit subscribe right up at the top and support us so that we can continue to have great guests like this. We can continue to bring you content. We can continue to train the future leaders and pay brilliant and beautiful and bright journalists and bloggers and videographers and everything that we need to be unencumbered so that we can continue to speak the truth about the Black community. Afro.com, y'all. February 18th, Brian Oles, Misha Green, Dr. Draper. This has been another episode of The Chicken Box. Everybody listening, from Chippy to the Jules to we in India, y'all. We are we everywhere. That's crazy. Like he said, we are world really wide. So thank you, everybody. Josetta, Carla, everybody who had a comment. It really does matter. And Black Business Matters, February 18th. We will see you there. And it won't be on Zoom, y'all. It's going to be a whole new platform. We partnered with somebody who said this was like the Noah Ark. God gave them this vision 10 years ago to start building a platform. And we are going to partner with them to give it its first go. So the Noah's Ark is going to hit the water February 18th of the digital world. Have a great day, everybody. Until next week.